Hello there, and as usual, I'm Aaron from My Staying Gamers, and welcome. So today I want to show you around a number of different drone ships that I've been working on. We've got everything from this small little ship here to something of a medium sort of carrier capacity to the absolutely, I think that can carry at least 100, maybe even 150 drones. I think it can even carry more than that the way I'm actually stacking them, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Now originally this design all started out by me building this beautiful shape. I built this sort of engine-based shape, and then I was like, well, what can I actually do with it? It looks really nice and all, but it needs some sort of purpose. So if you actually have a look around this shape, you can just see what I've done. I've put this sort of arced area around one of these atmospheric thrusters. Then around that, I built this sort of housing that I started to attach. And then originally I thought what would be really cool is if we had this platform around that stayed level with gyroscopes, and then the engine just turned within the center. And then I realized that it's probably not that practical. Maybe I'll just take the center part out and turn that into a ship. And this is where I got to this stage here. That is something I like to call the responder. Now the idea of the responder is when you're on planet side, the drones have detected some sort of breach in one of the areas and they need to check it out. They send one of these responders. This main sort of ship here provides fire support and recon from above, and then it drops these smaller drones that you can see are tucked in here by landing gear down into the fight. I'm going to try to get this on planets and I'll show you exactly how they drop in shortly, but for the moment you can just see how they tucked in there. And we've got the rockets that will fire up and lock onto the various targets, as well as the tagging system there on the front. Now going down a little bit below, we can also see the thruster coming out, as well as the slots where the drones can pop out from. Now over here we have the larger carrier. When I was testing this, it just didn't quite work on planets, so it kind of ended up being a little bit of a failed concept. But underneath, I'll show you exactly how I was planning on stacking these drones up. So you can see we've got the little donut shaped drones, the really tiny ones, and just look how many of them is here and how tightly packed they are. So just imagine releasing them, and the system I was going to use was rotors. So all I'd have to do is disconnect this small block here and drop them down into the fight, and you could have 100, maybe even 200 drones if this thing was completely kitted out with them absolutely hanging everywhere. But as soon as I started putting more than this amount on, it just started lagging up and causing a lot of problems on the server. So that is the larger drone, where I've connected 4 of these engine pods up, and this would just hover above, providing fire support, constantly dropping waves and waves of drones down onto the planet until, well, there's pretty much nothing left. Anyway, I'm going to take this down to planet side and I'll show you some of its features. Now, before I take that down to planet side, I want to show you the actual drone that's inside its wingtips. This is what we've got here. I put a basic sort of camouflage pattern on using the panel blocks, but it's exactly just a kind of smaller replica of the larger one. I like the whole idea of the Russian doll, where it's just a smaller version of that ship inside it, so these guys could drop out, cause some havoc, and they're pretty inexpensive to build. You just got simply one engine in the middle, as well as a various number of Gatling guns and components to make it actually controllable from another location. But anyway, let's get this down to the planet. I don't know about you guys, but there's something that is quite creepy but at the same time really cool about sort of flying saucer like ships. You can see how this one just drifts across the planet quite coolly. Look at that, it's just accelerating in that direction. If the pilot wants to take control of this, all he has to do is, in this case I'm going to grab F9, and to slow it down he's just going to tilt the engine back, and we can actually begin bringing this to a stop. Or we can even just drop it down lower if we wish by removing the engines completely, put the engines back on. They can just hover and drift in whichever direction it wants. And since we've got that drifting sort of feature, it really gives it that sort of drone, that sort of just constantly seeking out a target sort of feel to it. I don't know. It's hard to explain, guys, but at the same time it is very fun to pilot. Let's have a little bit of drift. I'm going to show you one of my favourite parts here. What we can actually do is just hit spacebar and just look how fast it takes off into the sky. Just like shoots up. Just imagine the drone's been looking around at a position like that, and then the next minute it just shoots off and looks somewhere else, and you're just like, whew, the drone didn't find me today. Right, we're going to give drone deployment a go. I've only mounted one inside just to see how well this will work. This will be the first time I'm actually testing this. We've got the one drone mounted inside there. We'll then access it from the hood. Go to small ship, remote control, and if we get the camera now in the right position, we should just be able to let it drop out the bottom. Let's just check this out. So if we press P now, landing gear goes off, drone drops into action, and then we need just to make sure we've actually got remote control. That we don't. Oh no. Now what I would like to say, it is possible to do this. It just tends to be more about the camera angle when I'm doing it. So if I just remote control this one quickly, actually take control of it, and I hit F9, I can control this, and if I actually switch it to the side like that and it started to fall, I can whip it back around. It was just due to the camera angle of how that was falling. So say for instance, if I tilt it up like this, it starts to fall and plummet to the ground, I can always just dip it and save it like that. So the previous test didn't go too well because Aaron was looking at it this way and he just didn't know how to control it in time. But in reality, this small little drone is very, very controllable. So I think it's just more down to me trying to operate too many ships at once. Let's actually have a little tilt of this thing over there. See, it doesn't even want to tilt in that direction. I have to actually force it to go where I want it to go. Look at that. The camouflage is working quite well as well. It seems to be blending into the environment. Well, not super well, but it's blending into the purpley, alienish sort of tones of the planets. Anyway, not a totally successful video, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Maybe it give you some ideas for messing around with your own drones. And I'll see you next time.